Grace and peace, you guys. Welcome back to Unshakable with April Chapman, where we discuss all things social, cultural, political, and theological from a biblical perspective. Today, I want to respond to the recent interview clips that have gone viral from Michelle Obama's podcast. Yes, this is the podcast that we all thought was going to be an abject failure. However, the more that this woman talks, the more I'm actually convinced that we may have been wrong. You guys, Michelle Obama, she is the new face of modern feminism, and I am afraid that her influence is way more broad-reaching than we thought. So in this particular podcast, the one that I'm going to review today, this is the one where Michelle was joined by Taraji P. Henson. And if you know anything about Taraji, I'm not going to lie. She woke as all get out and a crazy leftist. However, she is the likable girl next door, sister girl, black female that so many Black American women admire. And so in this episode, I wanted to review it because one, her sitting down with Taraji, it kind of humanizes her, makes her seem a little bit more down to earth, even though the both of them are Hollywood elite types. You know, they both have a lot of money, even though Taraji was just whining and crying about how hard it is, you know, to make the money that she makes because of the taxes, and how she's just not seen and given the roles that she believes she deserves in Hollywood. But anyway, you kind of get what you negotiate. But this is not a lesson in economics and personal finance. What I want to do, I want to review this episode where Michelle explains why she skipped President Trump's inauguration, and not just the inauguration, but the funeral of former President Jimmy Carter. And in this episode, she provides us with answers and an explanation and a little bit of insight as to what was the driving factor behind those choices. Now, before you clutch your pearls or start drafting your angry DMs, which you'll probably do anyway, hear me out. I will say I'm not 100% here to demonize Michelle. Well, actually, I'm lying. Let me stop. Actually, I am. And the reason why I am is because Michelle has long been exalted in the Black community as this change agent, a trailblazer, and this role model. So many young Black women and even white women have looked up to her. And since this is the case, I have to use her as an example in order to diagnose the cultural undercurrents that her words reveal. We actually have to examine her words as they have been publicly spoken, and then discuss the broader implications of what she said. So what I want to do is I want to share my screen and play the first clip. Take a listen at this.
Mm-hmm. Like you, I have believed in therapy my whole life. Mm-hmm. Done couples therapy with my husband. Both my girls they believe in therapy. This generation, mm-hmm. thankfully, I think our children are way more open to it. They understand the importance of self-help and all of that. I also sort of realized that, even Michelle Obama, I am still trying to tell myself that I am doing enough, right? Because there's always that feeling. I think we practice that striving because in order to be successful, I always felt like I had to be smarter, faster, work harder because somebody was going to doubt me. Somebody was already telling me why I couldn't do something before they knew me or I even tried. So.
Okay, I want to go ahead and engage with this part just a little bit because I thought it was fascinating to hear a woman who is married to one of the former presidents of these United States, Barack Obama, who had checked so many revolutionary boxes, such as being the first Black or pseudo-Black or whatever president of the United States. But she's the first female first lady who is what we would call a foundational Black American. And so to hear her say, you know, we've been in therapy, and I'm so thankful that we're in this generation that believes in therapy. You know, I get it. The weight of being the first lady was probably, or is probably, more than the average person can fathom, wrap their minds around, or walk in those shoes. But when she starts talking about the therapy to where, you know, I kept asking myself, am I doing enough? And striving to be the best, because if I didn't, then, you know, people would doubt me. I'm like, okay, you are college educated. You have a law degree. If I believe she's Ivy League, I don't understand who in the ether or in the world is out here setting this other standard for you to meet, because you, in their estimation, don't seem to measure up. And why did you in turn internalize these nameless, faceless voices out there that you're projecting onto yourself that claim that you're not good enough, so you have to keep striving to do more? This is made up. This is made up. And the reason why I say it's made up is because for her to have been a former first lady, we have so many other former first ladies that all they're known for is being the first lady of the United States. And for them, that was good enough. That was the pinnacle of, you've achieved it, sis. You won. You're married to the commander-in-chief of the free world. But for Michelle, as a Black female, that wasn't enough. Why? Because for some reason, living in, quote unquote, and I'm using this not in a derogatory sense, because I would so 100% live in the shadows of the commander-in-chief of the free world. Like the most powerful man on the planet, physically speaking, you're his woman. You share a bed with this man. Y'all have pillow talk. Like you are his woman. What else do you believe you need to achieve, unless you are saying this in an effort to devalue what it actually means to be someone's wife and to be someone's mother, and particularly to be President Obama's wife and the first lady of the most powerful nation in the free world? And so I just kind of wanted to engage with that a little bit, because I thought it was so strange to hear someone of her caliber bemoan and claim that she felt that she wasn't doing enough. And I'm like, by what standard? Because I don't know anyone in Black America that was trying to hold her to some other standard to achieve something else that she has not already achieved. I don't see where that actually happened, but let me let her continue.
You get in the, and I don't think this is unique to just women of color. I don't think it's just unique to men. But when you get in that habit of that constant striving and constant proving that, you know, it's enough, it makes us overachievers, but you don't ever turn that off. And at 60, I had to convince myself that I had done enough. After all that I had done in the world, I still felt a guilt, right? Struggling with like deep guilt that maybe I needed to do a little bit more. So I'm at this stage in life where I have to define my life on my terms for the first time. So what are those terms? And going to therapy just to work all that out. Like, what happened that 8 years that we were in the White House? What did that do to me?
Yes.
Internally, my soul, we made it through. We got out alive. I hope we made the country proud. My girls, thank God, are whole. But what happened to me?
Right.
So basically, her lack of contentment with being the First Lady of the United States forced her to project all of this added pressure from somewhere onto herself to make herself believe that she had not done enough, and that she said something very key. I gotta rewind it a little bit. She said, let her say it again.
We made the country proud that we were in the White House. What did that do to me?
Yes.
Internally, my soul, we made it through. What are those terms? And go deep guilt that maybe I needed to do a little bit more. So I'm at this stage in life where I have to define my life on my terms.
That's the part where she talks about, I need to do a little bit more. And then now I'm at the point where I have to define my life on my terms. And then let her finish this part.
The first time. So what are those terms? And going to therapy just to work all that out. Like, what happened that 8 years that we were in the White House? What did that do to me?
Yes.
Internally, my soul, we made it through. We got out alive. I hope we made the country proud. My girls, thank God, are whole. But what happened to me?
Right.
So it sounds as if she did not get, and these are my opinions based on listening to women who think like this, women who after they hit a certain age, they start behaving real recklessly by destroying their own legacy and emasculating their husbands and just choosing themselves at the expense of everything else. When she's like, what happened to me those 8 years? Nothing happened to you. You were a wife. You were a wife and you were a mom and you were America's first lady. And that was your job. For you to believe that you needed to do something else in addition to that, you are projecting, because no one out here projected or expected you to be anything more than that. Here's the problem. She was not okay with just being Barack's wife and Sasha and Malia's mother, because like most feminists, they view the highest honor and role of being someone's mother and raising children and being respectful and being a model of excellence. They view that as somehow it's not good enough and it's demeaning. And therefore, they have to burn it all down and choose themselves. I'm going to call this section the self-care escape clause. In the next clip that I want to play, Michelle is going to actually talk about the reasons why she chose to skip the inauguration. And this part just made me so angry. And this is probably the part that's going to make me go scorched earth, but it is what it is. But let's let her explain herself.
Because, my decision to skip the inauguration, what people don't realize, or my decision to make choices at the beginning of this year that suited me were met with such ridicule and criticism. Like, people couldn't believe that I was saying no for any other reason, that they had to assume that my marriage was falling apart.
Right.
It's like, while I'm here really trying to own my life and intentionally practice making the choice that was right for me, and it took everything in my power to not do the thing that was right, or that was perceived as right, but do the thing that was right for me. That was a hard thing for me to do. I had to basically trick myself out of it. And it started with not having anything to wear. I mean, I had affirmatively, because I'm always prepared for any funeral, anything. I walk around with the right dress. I travel with clothes just in case something pops off. So I was like, if I'm not going to do this thing, I got to tell my team, I don't even want to have a dress ready. Right? Because it's so easy to just say, let me do the right thing.
But then you become a shock absorber.
Yeah.
And that's what women are.
Yeah.
We're shock absorbers.
Yeah.
And that's exhausting. And it's not healthy.
Yeah.
It is not healthy. You've had to be shock absorbers for your husband, for your children, for your mom, for your family, your loved ones, because of where you were sitting in the public eye. That's not fair to you. When do you ever get to live for you? I applaud you. I'm happy that you are taking care of yourself in the way that you need to.
Yeah. Because, my decision.
All right. This is the whole. All right, this is the whole the self-care escape clause. Okay, so Michelle Obama, she framed her decision not to attend Trump's inauguration as this matter of self-care and prioritizing her own well-being. Now, listen, I'm not mad. I understand that we all have to protect our peace. And a lot of times when when we have to say no, because we are overextending ourselves, I get that. But what else do you have going on other than the fact that you were the First Lady of the United States? Arguably, you were the most public a representation of American progress, if that's what you want to call it, being not only a former first lady, but the first Black female first lady of the United States. And at two events where having public representation of grace and poise under pressure, you skipped out on something that was the cornerstone of American democracy. I don't understand how that's a personal choice of you choosing you. What that was a public statement. You weren't declining a brunch invite from your usual group of females that just want to get together and kiki and haha with you. You were declining to model statesmanship and civility in front of the nation that you once served and that still has an expectation for you to serve and show up when called on. I mean, we ain't got but so many presidents that are former presidents that are alive. How many of them are left that have to die? Unless they all die in the same month at the same time. It was not asking you too much to attend Jimmy Carter's funeral alongside your husband who chose to go, and to attend the inauguration of Donald Trump, who also you should have been there alongside your husband because he chose to go. What else you got going on? What else you got going on? It is this idea that this culture is now preaching self over service. And because I am a Christian content creator, I have to approach this when speaking to women and discussing these cultural things from a biblical perspective. Scripture flips that whole concept on its head. Philippians 2:3 reminds us, do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility. Count others more significant than yourselves. Now, translation for a pagan, that might mean sometimes your well-being has to bow to a higher calling and a higher purpose. Why? Because as my high school motto says, what we keep, we lose, and only what we give remains our own. Now, that's not scripture. She's not a believer. However, it is a wise saying that even a spiritually dead person who is a sinner, we see it happening and modeled every day by the unbelieving world who recognize my why is bigger and it's not always just about me. And when you're in leadership, this is one of the main things that leaders embody. They understand that sometimes your well-being, your feelings, and what you want to do has to bow to a higher purpose, a higher why, a higher calling. That's what it means to be a leader. However, what we see here, Michelle can't do that. She literally said that, people were surprised and shocked. And it was to their dismay that I chose to make this decision, not because there was something wrong with my marriage, but she's literally telling us, I just didn't want to. I didn't want to go, and I don't give a darn about this country or what everybody else was expecting to see. It ain't like we're expecting to see you at all these other events. It was two events. In my opinion, I think Michelle Obama chose to skip these. It might have been a matter of self-care, but to me, it was more a reflection of the rebellion and the defiance that she embodies as a modern woman and that so many women embody today, and why they struggle to have success in relationships and marriages, because they don't care what the right thing to do is. She said in her own words, she said, well, what seemed to be the right thing. No, she knew what the right thing to do. She didn't care about what the right thing to do was. She wasn't interested in doing that, because at the end of the day, she doesn't value any sort of national unity, tradition, to just show up and attend the peaceful transfer of power, but rather she'll show up for pop culture panels and red carpet Netflix documentaries. Like it demonstrates to us who she's always been and what she really values. And she values all of Barack's money and the wealth that they have amassed, and she wants to live that best life. But when it comes to reciprocating and showing up for her husband, she could not do it. She could not do it. Listen, I understand not liking the current commander-in-chief. That is a valid argument. So why couldn't her and Barack together make a decision? And she's like, hey, are you going to that inauguration? You know, I can't stand Donald Trump. And then Barack be like, you know, I can't stand him. I can't stand him either. But he's like, but you know what? Right now, the Democrats, we need to demonstrate that we know how to rise above and be strong. And it's been a while since we've hit something together. We should just go, not because it's about Trump, but just so it would be good for us to show up together. Like they could have made it about them. But there is no them with a woman with this mindset. It's you and then it's her. But it's no us. There's no them there. Right? Because I get it. She could have said, I couldn't bring myself, to go to the inauguration. I really want to prioritize my self-care. I want to define life by my own terms. And Barack would have been like, listen, this is not the event to do that. This is just not the event to do that. We get it. You're trying to assert some sort of independence separate from your first lady duties. But you the first lady, you my wife. I need you to do this for me. Michelle was unwilling to do that. But here's something that I want to caution Christian women against, because I get it. I'm perimenopausal myself. She's 60. She probably on the tail end of menopause, but her hormones are still wilding out and crazy. And women during this stage, they do stupid stuff. But what we're seeing here is this gospel of self-help, right? And it's this do you, chapter 1, verse 1. Thou shalt prioritize thy feelings above duty, decorum, and tradition. This is that therapeutic gospel that has infected our nation and particularly the Black community. And it has infected the church, because people now believe that their feelings are infallible and that if it doesn't feel good, it must not be good. So therefore, I don't need to do it. However, there's a biblical admonition in Romans chapter 12, verse 2 that says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Translation for the people of God, do not let the culture disciple you. Your emotions are not your shepherd. Jesus is. And if there are Christian women who watch this podcast and who are listening, you are undoubtedly going to destroy your home and tear it down with your own hands if you think the words that Michelle Obama here is speaking is empowering and she's living her truth. Because why is this married woman sitting down with this single woman who, by her own admission, has bemoaned so many of her choices, can't find a man, is lonely, gets tired of doing it all and holding all the weight of the world on her shoulders, and everybody wants her to show up for them? Why is she spilling the beans to this single woman and then listening to what this single woman is trying to tell her? That's not fair to you. You become a shock absorber and you got to show up for everybody else, and that's not fair to you. What about you? When do you get to live? She got to live the moment she said, I do, to Barack and said, whatever your vision is for this family, I'm on board with that. Because when you win, we win. And in marriage, it is no longer about you. Yes, you have individual pursuits and exploits and endeavors that you want to do. I have those of my own, but I could not do it at the expense of my husband and my children. They needed me to be the best version of myself during those early years in order for them to grow and flourish and for me to impart into them all that they need for life and godliness. And that role, it still has not ended. It shifted and changed, but it hasn't ended. But what I want to say about this, Michelle completely disavows the impact of her presence and what was lost by her not attending the funeral. What she needed to learn and understand, and at 60 years old, you think she would know, is that attending that funeral or the inauguration had nothing to do with how you feel. You too old to be worried about, well, I just didn't feel like it. Yeah, there are a lot of things that I don't feel like doing. But one, the funeral was about honoring someone's life. And as the former first lady, it was your duty to be there. And then attending the inauguration, whether you voted for the winner or not, it was about honoring the office. Her absence in both cases, it wasn't just silence. It was a statement where this modern feministic, selfish, burn it all down mindset forces women to choose themselves at the expense of everyone else. And they don't even care how it impacts their legacy, how it might be impacting their husband. She has no problem emasculating him. This was embarrassing to hear this woman speak like this. This is not some profound act of courage. This is elite level emotional insulation, selfishness. I can't even call it ideological tribalism. This is feminism on steroids. This is feminism on steroids. Here's something else that I wanted to note about this whole Michelle Obama situation. And this is the part that I felt was the worst. We finally get a pseudo black president. Not that we needed that, but because we got it, it was just like, yay, we could check the box. Out of all of the first ladies that have ever existed, why did we have to be the one, the black one, that was willing to embarrass her husband, to defy tradition, decorum, and just choose herself above all else, solidifying the stereotype that is known about black women, that, they're selfish, self-serving, they're gonna do what they want to do and you can't tell them nothing. They're unsubmissive, they're uncooperative, because at the end of the day, if she don't want to do it, she don't want to do it. And to me, she didn't care how this would look to the watching world, because she defaulted to that factory setting of black chick from the south side of Chicago that forgets the fact that she has risen to a level that so many of us could ever dreamed of. She just defaulted to what was already in her in the first place, that she's not about that life. She didn't have it in her to really be a first lady that would go down in antiquity. She's not a Jackie O. She'll never be a Jackie O. And she'll never be a Nancy Reagan. She ain't got it in her to be a Nancy Reagan. She is Michelle LaVaughn, or whatever her middle name is, from the south side of Chicago, who just so happened to marry someone who became the first biracial black person as the president of the United States, but she's just like everybody else. There's nothing different about her to set her apart. We cannot hold her up as some shining example of poise and grace and model womanhood to be respected. The most disheartening thing was that she had no problem sitting down on a public platform where she knows the world is watching and explain that the reason why she did not show up to these two events was simply because she was doing what she felt was best for her. And she chose not to show up because in that moment, she wanted to show up for herself and forget the rest of y'all. Because at the end of the day, I am only known as the First Lady of the United States. And now I want to carve out a piece of notoriety for myself, separate and distinct from my husband. And even if it means that the little piece of notoriety that I carve out for myself is selfishness and lack of duty, honor, respect, is just completely disrespectful and emasculating and embarrassing to my husband, it doesn't matter. It was something that I chose for me. And since I chose me above all else, it must be right, it must be good, it must be applauded, and it must be celebrated. And it said to me, like, if I was a man, like out here in the open market, I'd be like, dang, like I can't even win the White House and get loyalty from my woman because that'll never be good enough. She'll always be looking for something out there to validate her and to make her feel that she has arrived and that she is successful, and that just being by my side and being the mother of my children, even that ain't gonna cut it. No matter how much money I earn, it doesn't matter how many heads of state I sit down with, how many wars I declare, or how many peace treaties I broker. She's always going to be trying to compete with me. And if she has to choose between me and the family or herself and her country, oh, she going to choose herself hands down every day and twice on Sunday, and then go on a public podcast and tell the world about it and in front of her little soy-back brother and a cat lady B-list actress. That's what I walked away as the summary of all things from this. And that's what it embarrassed me to no end, because I said, we are confused and we wonder why so many young girls who have no concept of what it means to be in a one flesh union with someone else and to sacrifice and to be a wife and a mother for the sake of something bigger than you, for the sake of everybody else. They don't have a concept of that because they'll never see it. And they definitely are not going to see it in the former First Lady, the former first Black First Lady of the United States. They ain't going to see it there. You ain't going to see it nowhere. They don't make women like that anymore. And unfortunately, young girls, this selfishness and choosing me and protecting my peace and all of this, it is modern feminism on steroids. And she, my friend, is the face of it. And this is not good for the culture. It is definitely horrible for the Black community. And if you have young girls, you need to explain to them why Michelle Obama is not a role model to be looked up to. Because at the end of the day, you can't trust her as far as you can throw her, because she ain't loyal and she's selfish. And she's a feminist. And so there's nothing good that's going to come out of the combination of any of those things. Black women are going to listen to her words, hold on to her words as gospel. And then they are going to start structuring and patterning their lives in the same way by saying, well, if I don't want to, then therefore I will not. And they're going to find themselves. This is not going to lead to any sort of happiness or a well-adjusted life. You are literally doubling down on selfishness and prioritizing yourself at the expense of your nation, your community, your children, your marriage, and your family legacy. And this is just not messaging that the Black community needs right now. I started out this video by talking about how influential Michelle Obama is, and how her doing this show is started out slow and really wasn't nobody checking for her like that. But when you start speaking this, yes, girl, choose you, forget that man, you got to do what's best for you, that queen theology, queen with a K, That resonates with so many women today because they are selfish and they will always choose themselves at the expense of the children and their husbands and their whole entire families, because it is all about them. This said to me, this sent a message to Black men that no matter how hard you strive to achieve and hit the pinnacle of success, 9 times out of 10, your woman is going to choose herself and burn it all down and embarrass you, just if she just don't feel like it. It's just the hell with it. The hell with her, the hell with you, the hell with them kids, the hell with everybody. And that's what I took away from this. She didn't say anything deep or profound that would make me be like, you know what, I understand what she was going through. What are you going through? You have property in Martha's Vineyard, okay? You've got properties out the wazoo. You have more money than you can count. You've achieved and done all that there is possibly to achieve. And now at this point, your rebellion is on full display. And you are now an example for other women to go and do likewise. And I just think it's dangerous for the culture. Don't listen to her. Definitely do not listen or follow in the steps of Taraji P. Henson, because these women are ultimately miserable. And what they think is leading to freedom and empowerment and happiness is just cat lady vibes. Both of them just cat lady vibes. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think that I'm being, unnecessarily critical toward Michelle Obama in her explanation as to why she didn't attend the inauguration or Jimmy Carter's funeral? Or do you believe that this is exactly what Black women needed to hear? Because for too long, we show up for everybody else, and it's about time that we just start doing what we want to do and show up for ourselves. Whichever position or side you land on, I am interested in hearing your thoughts down in the comments below. And until next time, stay unshakable. Grace and peace.